processed meats. Now, all of us that were kids grew up, at the,
And the
eating deli
turkey, the
meats,
ham, and the
turkey
yes,
and a ham, right? I mean, like that's basically what did your
childhood.
mom, what did your mom pack in your lunch bag, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Well, that's a relic of the 1950s,
Mm.
of this sort of ultra processed foods that are everywhere, laden with chemicals. That's not what we want to be doing. Now, I have to say, it doesn't mean categorically that hams or sausages are bad for you, because if you go to Italy, or if you go to places in Asia or Latin America where they create dried meats kind of the old way, they're not putting chemicals in there and
Mm.
they're not manipulating it. But here, where you go to the deli counter and like
Yeah.
take a look at that deli meat, like that's not meat, doesn't come like that. Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
So here's the thing. Uh, Processed meats are actually classified by the World Health Organization as a carcinogen,
Mm.
and linked to the causation of cancer. You got to eat a lot of it,
Wow.
but a lot of people actually eat. I mean, how many hoagies or
Yeah, a
subs,
lot. Yeah.
right?
Wow.
And I got to say, like when I was growing up as a kid, I loved those kind of like fancy kind of like the deli meats and stuff like that.
Absolutely.
Totally not good for you. So
Wow.
that's not good for you. It also damages the gut microbiome.
Mm.
And it can actually damage your DNA. So you want to kind of be cut down or cut out sodas and processed meats. And then the other thing is really a category, and I call these ultra processed foods.
Mm.
So things are in a box or in a can that like are instant this, or scoop it out and eat it quick. I don't want to name any particular products. I don't want to call any products out, but I think we all know the stuff. A lot of stuff we grew up with and were advertised on television to kids.
Right.
The frosted this, the pop that, the things that use they're like the TV dinners, like things that used to be like instant foods. Got to be really careful about that, because if you take a look at the packaging, and I'm telling you, there's one thing your viewers can get from me about things to watch out for. Whatever you buy, pick it up, if it's in a box or in a can, and look on the side. Don't look just at the label. Look at at the name of it. Look at the side and see if you recognize
Mm.
the ingredients. If you start, if you start losing track and you can't pronounce and you don't know what most of that stuff is, it's an ultra processed food that
Mm.
harms your DNA, that lowers your immunity, that screws up your gut microbiome, it impairs angiogenesis. It actually causes our cells to age faster. Those telomeres burn down faster.
Oh, man. By those processed foods.
Yeah, ultra processed foods, ultra,
Okay.
right?
What's the
This
difference
is
between ultra and
okay.
processed?
So look, processing is technically any type of food you manipulate. I like if you pick a tomato and you cut it up and you make spaghetti sauce at home, that's processing. You're processing it. Okay. If you're taking flour and an egg and you're making homemade pasta, you're processing it. I'm talking about ultra processed. There's a
Got it.
term called extrusion. Have you heard of this?
Yes.
Okay. So basically, you've got these die cut machines that like this goop gets thrown into, and like the big oil, like crazy oils get thrown in there, and then it just like pushes out like Play-Doh chunks of food that get cut and dried. That's what I'm talking about. Like that's the ultra processing. It takes, I guess maybe the definition, it takes food and transforms it into a form you don't recognize.
Got it. Okay. The
You don't
ultra
recognize that
processing.
food.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
don't want that. I'm curious,
Now,
Dr. Lee, what do you think has been the biggest aha for you in your decades of work through from medical school to your research to your practice to these things? What was the biggest aha when you learned this thing? It changed everything for you.
there have been so many instances of that. Like as a scientist, I'm seeing new things literally on a weekly basis. Things are like my jaw
Really?
drops virtually. Like last week, Lewis, I read about a new discovery that we just discovered a new type of human cell in our heart last week.
Wow.
Like, like that's like I hit my head like, oh my God, really? We a couple years ago we discovered a new brain cell called the rose hip neuron.
Mm.
Okay. And it seems to be linked to depression. So I'm always amazed. I mean, as a scientist, I'm amazed by the marvelousness of the body and how much we don't know about it. And still, so we have to respect it. Did you know, by the way, that we had it also, this is just this past year, 2021, there was a landmark discovery that changed everything we knew about our metabolism.
What
right?
is that?
Well, so everybody says that, like when you're a teenager, you're growing tall.
You got a high metabolism. You're just burning calories.
Right? Yeah. Okay. Totally wrong. Metabolism's going down when you're a teen. Okay. And then people say when you're in your 20s or 30s, and you're starting to gain weight and getting out of shape. And they're like, man, my metabolism is slowing down. And then some people basically say that, I was unlucky because I was born with a bad metabolism. Look at my sister or look at my cousin. She's rail thin. She's so lucky she's got a fast metabolism, right? All that has been upended completely. It turns out that all humans go through only 4 phases of metabolism in their whole life.
Tell me.
Okay. I'm going to show you this because it's actually right here on my desk.
You got a chart. You got a graph. You got a chart.
No, I got a paper. This baby right here. It's in a journal of science. Okay. This is how researchers do it. Like all around my office, man, like I am reading this stuff, and this paper, I tell you, I got to look at this. It studied like 8,000 people from like 30 countries, and it studied people from 8 days old to 90 years old across 20 different countries. All right. This is the largest study of human metabolism ever undertaken. And here's what they found, that if you subtracted out body fat, and which is different for everybody, okay, and you were to just go right down to the core of real metabolism, energy usage, energy generation, here are the 4 phases. When we're born, we got the same metabolism as our mother. Makes sense, synchronized, okay? From 0 or from the day you're born to 1 year old, your metabolism skyrockets. In fact, it's twice high when you're 1 year old as when you're 20 years old.
Wow.
Okay. So from 1 year old down to throughout your teenage years and puberty, at the time you think that you're eating a lot and your metabolism is going sky high, it's actually coming down from its peak.
Interesting. Why does it seem like you're burning so many calories?
Well, you're more active and you're growing.
Yeah.
So you may be burning more calories, but your metabolism isn't changing. This is the key thing. We are hardwired to go through these phases. Now it's going down to 20 years old, from 20 years old to 60 years old. Okay. From college to retirement, it doesn't change. It is rock stable.
Huh.
All right. So and then after 60, it starts to diminish, but not as fast as you think. It's a slow grade down. Okay. 4 phases of human metabolism. We never knew this before this year. All right. This is how new it is. So here's the key thing. What makes all the difference between people? Like why is your metabolism different than mine? And why is a sumo wrestler's metabolism different than, somebody who's on a runway in Milan? Okay. And it has to do with the fact that our metabolisms are all the same, but the lifestyle choices that we make can actually push our metabolism one way or the other. So our metabolism doesn't cause us to be fat. Our fat slows down our metabolism. It's the other way around.
Interesting.
Completely the way around.
So how do we burn more fat then? To
all right, so
speed up our metabolism.
That's what I'm working on right now, and that is the topic of my next book, by the way, which I'm writing right now. Yeah, so stay tuned for that answer because I'm onto something really hot on that. And I will give you a little bit of a
sneak peek. What's an early sneak peek? Yes.
Well, you can eat certain foods to burn your fat down.
Ooh,
so
like what?
While caloric restriction and fasting can actually also do it, it turns out there are certain foods that you can actually eat that will trigger it.
Ooh,
You want
what are
to?
those? Give me some of those.
I don't want to give you a too much. I don't want to give yours as a spoiler because I'll have you come. I'll have you invite me back on the show and we'll
Yeah,
talk about that when
we'll
my
have
next
you
one comes
back
around.
on for sure. We'll have you back on
Yeah.
for sure. You can give us the whole debrief. But what would you say are a couple of these foods at least that you think that are now researched and proven to be powerful fat burning, I guess, tools?
I'll give you one that's actually just a surprise. Is seafood actually?
Seafood
Yeah.
helps burn
Ru-
fat.
ru- Yep.
Is it help burn fat or it starts to trigger and activate the fat
Triggers.
burning process?
It triggers. So there's certain elements in food that are newly discovered in research. Like
Wow.
I just told you some new stuff that's coming out of the hot off the presses. But I can tell you, like this is what I do. The research that if I told you about research about biotech developments, it may not actually mean anything to you for 10 years,
Mm-hmm.
maybe ever, never. Okay. But when there's research about food or about your health, a lot of times there's stuff that has immediacy. You can put it to use right away. So cancer starving foods, regenerative foods, gut health foods that can also help your brain, foods that slow down cellular aging, foods that lower inflammation and boost your immune system at the same time. That's what I'm talking about because the power of healing rests inside our body. And healthcare is not something that we need to rely on when we go to the doctor's office, right? Every year you go once. Healthcare is everything in between that we do for ourselves, and food is a medicine that we take.
Absolutely. I've talked about this many times on my show before that I grew up in a specific religion called Christian Science, where it was more the practice of spiritual awareness and that were spiritual ideas and less on using medicine to heal, but more using the mind and awareness to heal, thought, which would then heal the physical body. So medicine was never really a thing I studied or really took growing up. It was just kind of like when we got sick or when something happened, we used thought, prayer, spiritual prayer to kind of remind ourselves of who we are. But I'm curious, do you think that people could live without modern medicine if they eat properly? Like all the things that you talk about in your book, Eat to Beat Disease, do you think we could live longer lives, healthier lives without the need of certain medicines? Or are you saying we should be using
Well,
medicine and eating food when we need them?
we should be eating to enrich our lives from the time we're young all the way until our last breath. And that should actually be able to tackle about 2/3 of all the chronic diseases. And by the way, about a third of all cancers are thought to be due to diet and lifestyle. 1/3 of cancers. All right. We ought to be able to dodge, but you got to start early, right? I mean, this is not one of these things where I've been smoking my whole life and now I'm going to actually turn over a new leaf. It's never too late to quit, by the way. However, the fact of the matter is that so you grew up, as in the Christian Science framework,
which you're in the Boston area, so
that's where the hub is.
The Mother Church is in Boston. Yes,
it's amazing. It's an amazing place, a really spectacular place to visit, and a very special place actually. But I will tell you that the idea of having formative years groomed in a healthy mindset,
yes,
which is I think what you're talking about,
yes,
is so important. So that if you've got kids and if you're involved with teaching and if you're involved with a business where you can actually impact on kids, think about the impact that you have now could actually influence their health 30, 40, 50, 60 years from now. And that to me is a big responsibility. It's a giant opportunity to make a better society.
That's beautiful. I'm curious, we've got a few more minutes left. What do you think? You're telling me that every week you're essentially finding these aha moments based on the research papers you're finding and things that you're discovering yourself. And what do you think in your mind, if you could predict the future 10 years out, 5, 10 years out, what are going to be the groundbreaking things that we as humans discover in the next 5 to 10 years that is going to transform our health?
Wow.
Based on what you've seen in the last 5 to 10 years, and where you're like, these are unbelievable. Every month there's new
Yeah.
findings. What do you think is on the horizon for us?
Well, one thing that I think is most one of the big aha jaw droppers for me in the kind of the journey that I've actually had in my career is the fact that we can regenerate ourselves. Okay. And I never thought that was even possible. I had been working in stem cell therapy and regenerative medicine. And, it's a real struggle. It's an uphill climb to really try to show that we can actually regenerate the heart or the brain or nerves. And yet the body does it every single day. And when I discovered that, you could regenerate tissue by uh, barley, eating barley, which has beta D glucan, or with chocolate, as I mentioned to you, cacao polyphenols, or even olive oil. There's something called hydroxytyrosol. It's a natural chemical in extra virgin olive oil. It helps to kind of make that distinctive olive oily taste. That can actually help to protect your stem cell. Or if you are not a vegan but you eat seafood, and you're really adventurous, that black pasta squid ink that they have sometimes on menus. I happen to I like to explore different kinds of food. Squid ink actually protects your stem cells. It's
Wow.
like a shield. Okay, and so the fact that we can actually eat to regenerate. So I'm very excited by this idea that we can eat foods, and we're still discovering what foods can help propel our body's regenerative capacity. I think that's going to actually be groundbreaking. And then something that I'm actually working on that is really, future forward, right? So you're asking like what's going to be mind blowing in the future?
Yes.
All right. Well, look, I'm kind of like a pretty down to earth guy. Like I believe that we should be protecting our planet, doing everything we can to take care of, nurture this ball that we live on, and we should be doing better for our community. But I think from the time I was a kid, I appreciated and I was excited by this idea of space travel, which is now happening
Mm.
more often, right? All right. So here's something I think is going to happen over the next decade. As humans become extraterrestrial, we're going to be the first extraterrestrials we're ever going to meet is ourselves. And we get beyond near Earth orbit, our bodies are going to be bombarded by galactic radiation and have the effects of negative gravity changing our body. We got to find out what kinds of foods
Huh.
or supplements that we got to eat to protect ourselves.
That's crazy.
So I'm working on that.
That's cool.
So I've been meeting with astronauts. I've been talking to people in the space program, flight surgeons, and what I'm figuring is that if we can figure out what we're going to need in the future, for that we could probably bring that right down to Earth right now
Mm.
to actually do something good for us. So that's so I'm excited by that.
That's cool. That's really cool.